That wasn't racist. They were only joking. So today we're talking about racial gaslighting. I'm going to come back to that comment in a moment. Yeah, racial gaslighting. I don't think it's spoken about enough. I know that the term gaslighting has become popularized, particularly over the last few years, but it hasn't often been associated with race, and I think it should be. And this episode explains why. All right, so firstly, let's start by defining what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation, okay, where one person tries to make the other person doubt their own perceptions, their sense of reality, their memories, and so on, okay? So the term originates from a film in 1944 where the husband tries to fool his wife and convince her that she's losing her sanity by turning out the gas lights and denying that he did that. Okay, so she's like, "Whoa, why are the lights out?" And he's like, "They're not out. Like, what are you talking about?" And so she's thinking, "What? Huh? Am I going insane?" So, what are some of the characteristics of? So before I even go into it, right? So what we're talking about is that gaslighting, denying your sense of reality, saying the sky is purple when it's really blue, in a racial context. Okay, that's what racial gaslighting is. Okay, so some characteristics of racial gaslighting is the denial of reality. So the gaslighter refuses to acknowledge what is quite plainly the truth. They will insist that events didn't happen, or certainly didn't happen in the way that the accuser is saying. So let's say someone has said, "Look, whoa, that was quite racist, that thing that Jake did." And then the gaslighter says, "Oh, no, that wasn't racist. No, don't be silly. They were just joking. Can't you take a joke? You're so sensitive." So can you see there how there was this idea of, well, I'm not even going to entertain what you're saying. I'm going to deny it. And actually, I'm going to minimize it. Okay, so there's an aspect of denial of reality there. Also, what they'll use are contradictory statements or contradictory behaviors. All right, so this is where they regularly contradict what they say. And that's because, we all like to believe that we're good people, so we like to portray that to the world, but we all have unconscious biases and conscious biases, and they're often in conflict. They're not always aligned. Okay, so what this can look like is, a person purporting to the world that, I treat everybody equally. I do not have biases.
Hey, I know you're enjoying the podcast episode, but I just want to quickly come in and say, look, if you're an organization that needs anti-racism training for your organization because your staff are lacking in a racial literacy, they don't have the words, they get stuck when talking about racism, they want to be able to deal with incidents, but they're not sure how to, then check out our Time to Talk About Race online CPD accredited course at strawberrywords.co.uk. Okay, we can train from 10 to 10,000, but get in touch today at admin@strawberrywords.co.uk. Now back to the episode.
However, when they go into the work building on a daily basis, they ignore the Nigerian cleaner who's looking for a hello, and maybe the security guard that looks like the Nigerian cleaner. We hear this all the time, that often, workers will walk past the cleaners and never acknowledge the fact that there's a human being present. And often a lot of these people in entry-level positions like that tend to be racially marginalised. Not always, but often, okay? Projection. So they will project often. So the gaslighter may project their own faults or negative behaviors onto the victim. It's because they can sometimes feel so bad inside because they realized that they've overstepped a mark, or that they've done something that might be deemed racist, that it just seems like it would be the end of the world if they were to acknowledge that. So what they do is in turn turn that onto the racialized person and make them out to be the bad person. I remember this happened to me once, actually. I was in a hotel. It was a dinner and we were made to sit on tables with strangers, and there's this one woman who was drinking a lot. And I was literally minding my own business. And this woman said to her friend, she looked at me and then said to her friend, who happened to be mixed race, "They're so evil. Those black people, they're so evil." And I was really young at the time, and I was so shocked. I was upset. I, of course, made a complaint to management, and got dealt with and whatever. And, but, I don't know what was going on in her mind. Yes, I didn't do a thing. I promise I didn't do a thing. I'm happily just enjoying myself. But yeah, that just came to mind. And I laugh now because it just seems so ludicrous, so irrational. But it certainly wasn't a laughable moment at that time. I was just shocked. I was probably around the age of, I don't know, 25 or so. I hadn't really experienced overt racism, and it was just like, it's like somebody had punched me in the face. It was horrible because, like most people, I like to think of myself as a good person. So for somebody just to say that just because, I'm like, what? Anyway, so that's an example of projecting. And actually, I was going to give a different example that just came to mind. So another one is when someone raises that the person was subjecting them to a microaggression, because that person feels so guilty and shamed, they turn on that person and calling them a horrible person for making them feel so bad. So it's a similar sort of situation. What they also do, these gaslighters, is undermine confidence by repeatedly denying the victim's perceptions or feelings, okay? So the gaslighter erodes the victim's self-confidence and trust in their judgments. So again, you'll hear the statements, "You're using the race card, we're not going to entertain this. I'm just going to throw this at you. You're using the race card," again, designed to shut the conversation down. "You're too sensitive. How can anyone tell you how you can experience something?" I never understood for a long time that was a form of emotional abuse. It's been said, from a psychologist's point of view, it's a form of emotional abuse because you're denying a human being's feelings. You're telling them how to feel. No one has a right to tell somebody else how they feel. So when you say you're too sensitive, well, then how should they feel? Essentially, you're saying you should be feeling this. Well, how do you know that? And who makes you the judge, right? So that's where we come from when we say that. Being silent when racial harm has been caused. Again, it's a denial of someone's reality. And that's happened a lot recently, particularly around these racial far-right riots. A lot of people within workplaces are just staying silent and not talking much about it. It's been swept under the carpet. But I know, because we do a lot of small focus groups with racialized people, I know that they're still experiencing a lot of pain. And much of that pain is not just because of the riots and realizing, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of people that really don't want us here. But it's also because their colleagues have said nothing. Management have said nothing. There's no space for them to talk and to process all of this. I've been talking a lot about that recently, but it's important. So there's no but. So that's it. That's all I really want to say today. What I'll finish off by saying is, if you're part of the racial majority, I want you to be aware that racial gaslighting is so common and that you might be doing it, and to own that. To own it. And I know that's difficult. It involves being vulnerable. It involves being honest with yourself. It involves stopping yourself when you feel the need to deny someone's reality or defend your position when you know that you possibly could be in the wrong. It's just in your head saying, am I denying this person's feelings? Am I really listening to them? What would it look like to really hold space for them and to put my feelings to the side just for a second? That's the way we work through this. No one's perfect. we all make mistakes. We've all fallen foul to harming another person based on society's rules. There's a way through this. So there's no shame here. There's no shaming here. And please don't shame yourself if you find that you've made you've subjected somebody to racial harm. It's about, what do I do better? What do I do now that I realize this has happened? How do I remedy this? Do I apologize? And how do I continue to do the work? Okay, that's it. Thank you for listening.